Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Christian Toby Obumseli was murdered in Miami, as we all know. Courtney Taylor was a few weeks ago on the Fresh and Fit podcast talking about how she only dates rich black guys, but then how she also won't be submissive anywhere but in the bedroom. Christian Toby Obumseli wrote about a decade ago of his disdain on Twitter for black women. I don't know if he was talking about African American or the race, the black race as a whole. I'm not sure. Because make no bones about it, Nigerians racially are black. Africans are generally black, even at the edges of the Sahara. And there are black folks in the Sahara. Lauren Smith Fields was murdered. We know about that. Her tweet or her Facebook post, whichever social media post she had, saying that she had tried with us and was done, was about a year old, maybe two, if my memory's bad. It was recent. She was murdered because, and I'm going to use murder because, let's be honest, a lot of sisters ain't messing around with fentanyl like that. She was murdered from someone she met on Bumble. That means she had to make the approach. That means she was willing to pursue these men. And when you've got a pattern of these men committing violence and sending a particular group of women to the upper room, that means they're disgusted with these women. That means they're upset that they can get these women. That's exactly what they don't want. But since it's so readily available, maybe they take them in and they're upset that that's all they could get even after they're finished. That's one of my guesses. What we are seeing is a situation in which it is not any from our race doing the killing. We are getting killed. And it is when we're messing with specifically the Wyatts. You're not hearing about a whole lot of this with even other people of color, men or women. You're hearing about this when we mess with the Wyatts. But I want to state this. Black women have to support justice for Obumseli or Obumseli. I forgot exactly how it's spelled, but it's Obumseli. So you have to support justice for him for one reason. If it was required for Lauren Smith Fields because it's murder, then it is required for him because it's murder, regardless of their feelings towards the opposite gender of their own race. Also, apparently, from him, this sentiment was on social media while he was in high school. She apparently had just finished high school when she posted. Courtney Clenny Taylor or Courtney Taylor Clenny did what she did for whatever reasons and got away with it, much like these men that murdered Lauren Smith Fields and the one that murdered the other one in her neighborhood got away with it for a while. I think one was taken into custody, if I'm not mistaken, but you get the point, you get the understanding. What I want you to understand and remember about this is that they're getting away with what they do. They're not paying. This is problematic. I heard about her not even being in the mental hospital anymore, but being confronted out at a restaurant. Now, I don't know if that's actually her or if it's someone else that was mistaken for her. I'm not sure. I hope that that's a rumor. I hope she's still at least in that mental hospital. She should be in custody. She never had any signs of mental illness or violence before. But there's also a lesson in this for women in general, and that is that you can fly into a rage if you have the gall to say only rich men, or even if you have the gall to say only middle class men. If you have a class requirement for your men and you still want to be controlling and not submissive, you're going to set yourself up to fly into these rages. And she had no control over hers, apparently. Toxic behind, sitting up on Fresh and Fit talking about only date rich black men, and right after that she had the gall to say something about she don't submit except in the bedroom. The funny thing is, if it's not the kind of guy she wants, most of them will never know that that's where she wants you to take charge. So think about how many men struck out with her because she can't communicate except for the purposes of sounding toxic on social media, on a podcast. What you gonna do? Say take charge? Toxic broad like that. That's why I tell you men, give up on fornication. Leave it. Find yourself alone with someone like her. You think you're going to have this satisfying encounter? No, what's going to happen is if you do take charge, like she said, she's going to turn around and say that you violated her because you took charge. You don't have to violate her for her to say it. And that's the other thing. Celebrity podcast. Daphne Sutton Ford, or Daphne Ford Sutton, has talked about this. Shout out to her. And Edward Anderson went on to one of her panels recently about selective outrage. And that title actually is very pertinent to this, selective outrage. Gentlemen, this is what you were dealing with. The sisters have selective outrage. They don't care what the mattresses said, what Wanda Sykes and Regina Hall said, or is it Regina King? I forgot. What they said about LeBron's hairline in the same award show in which Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. No one fibs a guck because it's okay. That's fine. And they actually got alopecia. See, Daphne Ford Sutton is actually exposing individual ladies for this, because they have their own women's only spaces, just like I said. And I said this before I found out about her. I found out about her yesterday. She's going into their spaces and she is exposing the things they say and the tricks they play. And when she catches you, she will tell you, you write an apology in a Word document, and I don't expose who you are, or you don't do it and I expose who you are and what you said. I got the receipts. She's not a woman that's been spoiled by a bunch of men growing up, always having her pick of men and they just gave her everything she wants, and that's why she's not bitter towards men. No, she just understands it's wrong. She sees the double standard. But it's that selective outrage, gentlemen, that tells you you're dealing with hypocrites. Now, the only way for someone to have a double standard and be selective about how they're going to react is when, and not be a hypocrite, is when they tell you we are open enemies. I don't have not only your best interest in heart, I'm not even interested in being fair. I'm interested in winning at all costs. Now, when they come out and say that, that's an open enemy. And even then, an open enemy can be hypocritical. Gentlemen, I told you this was war. I'm still waiting on something to come out and show me evidence that it's not war that we're in. That it's more like a sports competition, but see, they got rules. That's not what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with rules, we're dealing with war. Whatever the hell they do is fine. Whatever bad happens to us is fine. Even just whatever bad doesn't happen to us is a problem. That's why it is that there's that post, and you'll see it on Dr. Tia San Johnson's channel, why there's that screenshot of that tweet about how one woman's only gripe with bumping uglies is looking up and seeing a man enjoy himself. She'd be bitter if every single man she's with didn't enjoy themselves. But she's angry because she's seen them enjoy themselves. Goodness gracious. It's just as plain as day. You're not dealing with trauma. Keisha doesn't just need a little coaching. And this is why I decided not to take on a debate after thinking about it. I decided not to go and just debate with Clarence Jr. It's not that I hate him. No. It's just that why would I sit up and let someone even finish the sentence if they're going to sit up and speak against evidence we can see? They're in groups saying this. And they feel confident saying this in front of each other. That means that there are too few of them checking each other for this. And this is exactly what my mother warned me about a long time ago. I'm just telling you now. It's actually worse than what my mother warned me about. You're involved in a gender war. And I'm going to tell you now, they got a lot of sisters who, they're not saying this out in public, but they actually heroicize Courtney Taylor or Courtney Clenny, whichever one is actually her name. Mark my words, I have not seen screenshots of them heroicizing her yet. I know that somebody's doing it simply from experience. I'm just waiting on the screenshots to come out and prove it. And some of you probably already have them. This is hatred, man. And the only thing we keep learning as time goes on is that it's worse than what we previously knew. Every time we find out something new, it just shows us how much worse it really is. There's a verse in our book, in our scripture, addressing the Muslims, telling us about the idolaters. It says that rank hatred has appeared from their mouths, and what their hearts conceal is far worse. And that was addressed from Allah to the Muslims regarding the idolaters. And that holds true in general for today. I never thought that this would be true within a race, within the original race of humankind. That this would also apply to those who most closely resemble Eve and their rank hatred of those who most closely resemble Adam, peace be to him, and may Allah be pleased with her. Never would have thought. This keeps up, and understand, this is a Nigerian man saying this. So it could very well have been he was talking about the race. Could have very well been, because I ain't going to front. People are talking about how bad these ladies in Lagos are getting too. They're saying it's bad. So this may very well be the end, not just of the race in the diaspora, but of the race in general. Could very well be, because I can tell you on the continent, misandry is not retreating, and it is not completely being opposed. It is advancing. And more men from different parts of the continent have begun to tell me and others that even back home, sisters are looking at any non-black man like their God. You don't get that kind of anti-black misandry in Southeast Asia. I'm telling you straight, Richie Mack, he's getting that good treatment. I can see that. He wouldn't make all these videos and talk about it if he wasn't. So what we're dealing with is a situation in Southeast Tropical Asia in which guys like Richie Mack are actually preferred over the Wyatts. Go back to the continent, and it depends on where you go, but you could easily find that no, the Wyatts are preferred over you. The irony of that, I can't even begin to tell you, because our enemies, white supremacists, white nationalists, are actually beginning to talk about, because of the intelligence of not Southeast Tropical Asians, but Eastern Asians, because of their intelligence, they don't mind going ahead and mixing with them. This is something talked about in their circles now. But in Southeast Tropical Asia, many times we're preferred. I wouldn't say every single lady, but a lot of times we are preferred. Whereas in the continent, we're not. In the continent, the difference is that it's not war, it's not hatred yet. But you know what? What they do is, and I'll tell you the enemy's trick and then I'm gone. What they'll do is when they systematically impoverish you as a man and can get you associated with poverty, then through women's hatred of poverty, they can get the lady to hate you. Funny thing is, the ladies that are falling for this don't realize that just as they've been systematically masculinized, or they feel that it's been systemic, our natural hate of masculinity in women will drive us to hate them. And eventually, just as they will associate our nose and lips and hair texture and skin color with poverty that they hate, and hate those things in us as well, they will train us through their attitudes. They'll train a young generation of black boys up and coming to hate these traits and features in them. I don't think it's gotten that far yet, but that's what's going to wind up happening. It may have already gotten that far. These young black boys in the teens, they may already be turned off by their own phenotype in a woman. Seems like it. But yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there that sisters have to support his cause for justice, the cause of his relatives. They have to. And they can't throw up the old "he's not ADOS" thing either. Only because they supported Lauren Smith Fields. And many of us also supported the cause of justice and that man being arrested. We simply said that she had been out of our protection. She chose to step out of it. That's the difference. We didn't say she deserved that. We didn't say we don't really care. We just said we're not the ones who did it. That was them. Should he be arrested? Yeah, but you know what? This is your system that you've loved and upheld so much. So work that system. Thanks for listening again. Black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum. A black heterosexual non-select male power because they don't like it. A black patriarchy until extinction and judgment day.